Do you remember the day that you were born? Probably not, because you were just a little teeny tiny baby. With the cute cheeks. Did you know that the church was born too? No, not as a baby, because that would be a little bit weird. Now, I'm not just talking about our church or our building. I'm talking about something so much more bigger. After Jesus died and he rose again, he appeared to some of his followers and his disciples, and he told them some really awesome, incredible things, and some very important things too. One of the most important things he told them to do was to go into all the world and tell everyone as much as they could about him and the fact that he had saved people. He had died on the cross for them. Now, the whole world is not just their backyard, but Jesus was meaning China, America, France, Zambia, Fiji, Venezuela, the whole world. And he didn't want people to just hear about him. He says he wanted them to become his disciples. He wanted everyone to live like he lived. Remember last week? We found out that copying Jesus is actually a really good thing to do, because Jesus lived a really good life and he is a great example for us to follow. And a big part of being his disciple is living the way that he lived. So he told all of his disciples all of this because he was going to be leaving them soon. You're leaving? But Jesus, he's so smart. He already had a plan. He said that after he leaves, a helper was going to come to help them, to be with them, to guide them, and to help them to live just like he lived. Okay. That is exactly what happened. The disciples waited and waited, and they maybe felt kind of lost, not really knowing what was happening. They didn't really have a leader now, and Jesus had just gone, and what do they do? And suddenly, a big wind blew through the room that they were in, and tongues of fire appeared on their head. That was the sign that the Holy Spirit had come. The Holy Spirit was that helper. He was going to be the one who would be with them. God's Spirit was going to be with them. And can I tell you something? Almost immediately, things changed. The disciples began to speak in other languages they didn't even know that they had never learned. And in those languages, they were telling other people who understood those languages, they were telling them about Jesus. How cool is that? And then something really awesome happened. Peter, who was actually a fisherman, and everyone knew that he was a fisherman, he began to preach to the crowd of thousands of people. A fisherman began to preach, and they understood what he was saying, and it was amazing stuff that he was saying. And not just Peter, other people too. That small group of disciples, they went out and told more and more people about Jesus, and more people were receiving the Holy Spirit, and more people were going and telling more and more people about Jesus, and more people were preaching, and people were doing miracles, and people were getting saved, and it was awesome. This group of people were going to become something super amazing.
So, a long time ago, there was a guy named Jesus. He was God's son. God's rescue plan for us. He came to earth, healed people,
told them about God,
and then
he died for us.
he paid the price for our sin, because sin always has a price. After that,
He came back to life.
and then he went to heaven to be with his dad again. His dad is God. But Jesus had taught his friends how to be like him.
So even though they couldn't see him,
They could act like him. That meant sharing with each other,
loving each other,
praying for each other, because it reminded them of Jesus. And they did even cooler things too. Because when Jesus left, he gave them something. The Holy Spirit.
which meant they could do miracles. miracles,
teach other people,
heal people.
and most importantly, they could talk with God. And so can we. Jesus called them the church. Now sometimes,
When we think about church,
we might think about a building or a place, but
church isn't a building.
actually the church is people. I'm the church, you're the church, we are the church. All of us.
When we act like Jesus,
We are being the church. When you help, you're the church. When you pray for someone, you're the church.
when you show love,
You're the church. When you tell people about Jesus, you're the church. When you obey,
you're the church.
we are the church. And one day, Jesus will come back for his church.
He'll finish the rescue plan he started.
It will be incredible. And
And that
that's an amazing part of God's story.
The church started in a really cool and awesome way. I mean, literal tongues of fire. And you and me, we are still part of the church today. And though sometimes it looks different today than what it did when Peter and them were around, we are still part of God's church. And when we love people, when we share with people, when we tell people about Jesus, when we do good things for each other, when we are kind, we are being the church. And it's awesome to be part of a group of people that do the same thing. So this week, think about, what can you do to be the church this week? Now, no, you're not going to be a building for a week. But what things can you do, like Peter and all those people in the early church? What can you do to be the church this week? To someone or to a whole lot of someones? I think that the world would be a whole lot better if more and more and more people were being the church to each other. Because being the church means being like Jesus. That is the most awesome thing that we can be like. The most awesome person we can be like.